Hello, I am William McLaughlin, and I'm here to tell you about the Apache Log4Shell incident, the exploit that almost killed the internet. So first, let me tell you a little bit about Apache Log4j, the open source Java logging library that was used in this incident. So it was used to track what happens in applications where it would log error messages and user inputs, and it was widely adopted in enterprise applications and services from small businesses to some huge corporations that I'll list below. But it was used to help developers troubleshoot and monitor issues, and this was useful because then they didn't have to spend all this time debugging to kind of see what errors arose. And again, some notable companies that use the Log4j library were Apple's iCloud service, many Microsoft servers, Twitter, Amazon, IBM, Salesforce, Oracle, Tesla. And for the discovery of this vulnerability, so it was a 0-day vulnerability discovered on December 9th, 2021. At least that was when it was reported to the mainstream public by Alibaba, because actually 2 weeks before that, their cybersecurity researcher Cheng Xiaozun had found this vulnerability and I guess was studying it before they made their initial report. But Minecraft users also noticed this exploit, and they would send these messages with the exploit and would hack into personal devices and later web servers. And this was a big problem, and Microsoft, the company that owns Minecraft, initially sent out a software update to the app and declared the patch version to be safe. But later they realized the issue wasn't actually Minecraft itself, but actually the open source Apache Log4j tool that was used in many different applications. And again, by the time this vulnerability was acknowledged by Alibaba, many systems were already compromised, and it was a nightmare for all cyber experts because this was a easy to perform, ubiquitous exploit with no immediate fix. And in fact, it scored a 10 out of 10 on the common vulnerability scoring system, which you can see that a 10 means it is a critical issue. And here at the bottom, you can see a little bit of how this JNDI lookup string was performed to gain access to someone else's IP address. So for a little bit more about the mechanics, so again, the Log4j tool scans for anything in the message requiring interpretation using the JNDI lookup class. And this allows attackers to perform remote code execution in the log. And for instance, like a message might say the user running Squarespace is blank, like insert user. And Log4j's job would be to complete that message. So the user running that Squarespace is Simon. And because Log4j executes this command embedded in incoming messages, it can have a wide range of effects, and especially like it can't distinguish between harmless instructions and malicious commands, like giving the full server control to hostile actors. So that is largely what presented a huge issue, because messages users sent would carry this poison pill for the Log4j to interpret, which was known as the Log4Shell vulnerability. And it was very dangerous because it required minimal expertise. And here on the side, you can see a little bit of how this exploit works, where again, the user would send a JNDI lookup to a IP address, and then the connection would be received and the payload would be sent. And obviously, this was very problematic. And in fact, it took several different patches to really kind of mitigate the effects. The first patch, version 2.15.0, closed much of the vulnerability, but hackers could still send malicious JNDI lookups to different non-default setting systems, which 2.16 layer patched. But even then, hackers could still use malicious lookup to send vulnerable systems into infinite recursion. So, in this case, it would be like a buffer overflow leading to a denial of service. Um, and Apache then had to again release 2.17 to fix this flaw. And so now, security researchers strongly recommend organizations at least update their networks to version 2.17.1 to really mitigate the effects. And here on the right in this graphic, you can see how each version, slowly goes down on that scale, the CVSS scale. So it went from a critical issue to then like a high danger issue to now like more of a medium issue. And as of December 2022, it's still a little outdated, but 25% of Log4j downloads were still vulnerable. And the Department of Homeland Security predicted that this would take at least a decade to fully address like every vulnerable instance. But some things our security teams can do are removing message lookups and also the JNDI lookup class from these vulnerable apps. And yeah, this was known as exploit that almost killed the internet. Estimated 10% of all digital assets were vulnerable at the time of discovery, and hackers can do almost anything: steal data, install ransomware, and capture devices. And it took agencies and enterprises weeks to really remediate the affected systems. And it sparked global security alerts. It was a full globe cyber pandemic, and many lessons were learned, including the importance of regular updates and dependency checks, to be kind of skeptical of reliance on these widely used open source libraries. Even though lots of people trust them, they still require careful oversight. And also proactive detection and quick remediation are critical to minimize the damages.